Did you know there are 4 prices in a real estate transaction? What are they? Which one is most important? Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Theresa Wellman with HomeownerExperience.com. Today we're talking about real estate prices. There are 4 different prices throughout a real estate transaction. Do you know what they are? We're going to cover that. We're going to talk about what's most important. So let's get into it. The first price is the list price. Now, the list price is what the seller sets to offer their home for based on some guidance from a listing agent. Now, many sellers are going to look at comparable sales. Some sellers think their house is really valuable and they're going to put an extra high price tag. Today in the market in the summer of 2022, as things are shifting, there are some sellers that have priced really high back months ago prices and some sellers who are a little bit more realistic. So as you can see, there's a huge range for list price. Price number 2 is going to be the written offer price that a buyer makes on a property. Now, this is a starting price that will be offered to the seller, and based on many other conditions could be the final purchase price, which is price number 4, or it could just be the starting point. So obviously buyers and sellers can negotiate, depends on the market conditions. The third price is the appraisal price, which is what the bank values it at. So the appraisal price could affect the offer price to then affect price number 4, the actual contract sales price. So there are so many prices to think about, and depending on the market condition, those prices can have different relationships with each other. So let's talk about some different scenarios, what I mean by those relationships. So let's go back to the pandemic crazy sellers market that we had in the early 2022 season as well as 2021. So let's go over a scenario that I had in January. Seller listed the property for $1.8 million. We had so much interest, we ended up with 20 something offers. The property offer price, we had one at $2.3 something million. Now, there were no contingencies with that written offer price. The bank appraised the property much lower than that, but because there were no contingencies, the buyer had to come up with extra money above the bank's value to be able to close the sale. Now, because there were no contingencies, obviously when the seller picks that, they got to pick a buyer who has the capability to do that. But in a slower market, things would be a little bit different, right? But finishing that scenario, then the final contract price was still that offer price written by a buyer because they had no contingencies and no ability to renegotiate based on appraisal or inspections investigation contingency. Okay, so let's look at scenario number 2. That's in a more neutral market or maybe a slight seller's market where I would say we are a little bit more today in the middle of 2022. So say the list price is $1.5 million. The written offer comes in at $1.475 million with some contingencies. And then the appraisal comes in, let's say right at the offer price, so $1.475. Now, what's going to be the actual sales price? Probably $1.475 unless there's some repairs to negotiate. But what I will tell you is I've seen a couple scenarios today where actually properties are coming in appraising above that price number 2 of the written offer price. Yes, that can happen. And you know what? The buyer does not need to disclose that number to the seller if they don't want to. Obviously, if they have an appraisal contingency, and it appraises short or the bank thinks the value is less, they might want to address that with the seller. But if the bank says the property is worth more, the buyer's probably going to want to move ahead with their written contract price to make that the final price. Okay, do you get a feel for that? If you have any questions or comments, please do write that down below in the video. I'd be happy to get back to you. Now, the third scenario is going to be a buyer's market. Let's say what happened in 2009 when the market had totally changed and there was a lot of inventory and not many buyers out there buying or willing to buy. So in this buyer's market scenario, let's say the property is listed for $1.5 million again. A buyer can come in with an offer written at $1.4 million for price, the second price in that order, and the bank can come in and appraise the property before or lower or higher but the buyer is likely to have contingencies. So let's say the bank comes in and appraises the property actually at $1.35 million, still below the below list price offer, right? So lower, lower, lower. In that case, because there's an appraisal contingency, the buyer can go back to the seller and renegotiate. They can get the final sales price to match the appraisal price, or maybe somewhere in between where the buyer and seller give and take a little bit. So I hope you understand that the relationship between these four important prices can definitely change with different real estate transaction scenarios and markets. Based on those scenarios, which of the four prices do you think is most important? Well, I'm going to say it's that last one, the final sales or contract price, because that is what the buyer actually pays, and that is how the seller calculates their net profit. So that is the most important price, and depending on contingencies, that could be something that you don't find out until a week or two before you move. So please comment below if you have any questions. I hope you enjoyed this video and had a little bit more understanding about why a buyer's agent or a listing agent is going to be really valuable on your side. Somebody who does a lot of business is going to know what's going on at the local market and be able to advise you as to your list price and your offer price, and hopefully help you negotiate a great contract price. So thanks so much for watching. I'm Theresa Wellman.